order. Motion to begin. Have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? I just had.
And I don't know.
That's you, actually. Two of them. It should be each. You're probably right. Leach, Leech. Well, actually, Leach. Leach, Leach School, okay.
Would you spell it again?
Leach. Uppercase L and the rest of it.
Okay.
No. You know,
Okay.
easy going. Yeah. Just look at it. I actually read it right before I got here. And wow. Yeah. That was good. Motion to approve the appended minutes?
Yes.
Yes. Do I have a second? All in favor? Oh, great. We have a lot to cover today. So under playground equipment update, I wanted to give you some feedback from the Leach School visit, which was from the principal, Virginia, and I'm gonna forget her last name, Dr. Ginny, she's called. And she and one of her colleagues came and had a number of different suggestions based on the community. She suggested that we add another path out of the playground for safety. For her community in particular, she recommended fencing around the playground so that kids they could keep track of their kids at all times. She said really important was to make sure that the ramp transitions to the playground surface are smooth. Right now there's a drop from the ramp to the mulch. And if we have rubberized surface, that drop will go away, but we need to be really cognizant of it. She said, if we could add a wheelchair swing, that would be great. They have one over at the school. I'm going to check it out. But apparently it's a big hit. And she said for the ramp, integrating musical elements in is something that she recommends. Also using high contrast colors is
You're saying
really.
musical elements, you mean like this, okay,
You know, I've seen things where kids stomp on different buttons and they have sounds.
Oh, okay.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. It's really great. But the high contrast colors, that was an interesting thing. And then incorporating pictures and symbols into the playground, and also having shade. So that was a really important thing. And on the topic of shade, I met with Anna Wick, who's a professor of landscape design over at D, and she's lining up 2 UD students who will be on a fellowship this summer to work on landscape ideas for the Battery Park Playground. Along with that comes, we're applying for a UNCF grant, and that's from a woman named Taryn, and I'm going to forget her last name. Hey, Matt. And so that would be a several $1,000s to plant trees and to plant landscaping to improve the shade element by the playground and to cool the area down. So those are great possibilities for us to do, and I'm not sure who needs to approve this, whether this is something that we as a subcommittee take a vote on, or whether this goes to city council once we apply for the grant. I have a meeting in April with Taryn, who is going to come walk the battery park to see and what's there, what needs to be there, and to give us feedback before we apply for the grant. So, Brian, if you have any ideas about what our next steps are, because I don't know that we can, as a subcommittee, just say, yes, I want to go for this grant. We're going to please there. My guess is we need buy-in, as always, from the city and from the trustees.
Yeah, I would think a presentation needs to be made to the trustees. And we probably will need to run it by their council.
Mhm.
And then for the city solicitors, usually at the city council meetings. So I think it would need to be a topic on the agenda,
Okay,
where, it can be a topic of voting or a presentation is made,
Mhm.
Voting and then a decision.
okay,
But it's more substance than it is, I don't think it's gonna be that tricky to get it done.
okay, sounds good. On the topic of other grants, the AARP grant was submitted for benches and shade. We'll find out pretty soon whether we got it. We applied for $50,000 and I think our chances are good. Mayor Valerie lined up a contact over at Delaware Refinery and they came and walked the playground. And so she sent them our budget for phase 2 and surfacing, and we'll see if by following up, we can get something there. She also recommended we reach out to Crota. So if anybody has a contact at Crota, that would be a really good thing.
Was that last week in respect to the refinery?
Yeah, were you in on that?
She had mentioned that she was going over there, I think Thursday or Friday.
She did it, yeah.
And, yeah.
That was great, because I know they've been on our list. Wanted to submit a quote, a competing quote from Compin. Let's see, what went, oh, it's in here. Last time we had a quote for surfacing from, they are the surfaces, recreation resources, and now we have a quote from Compin. They're pretty similar. And this one says they can demo the existing stone, remove existing mulch, and add 8 inches of stone for $79,999. I'm sorry, $79,990. And then do the custom poured in place servicing for $296,240.31. So the difference between the two quotes is a couple of $1,000s. And I would assume those differences would disappear once we got down to brass tacks to figure out what we want. But before we can really do that, we have to become more knowledgeable. And here's where we need to do some site visits. So I have a couple of places that I think we should visit. The Glasgow Playground for sure, for both the surfacing and the inclusive equipment. So if I have any volunteers for that, I would certainly take them.
I'll take
You'll
Glasgow.
take that one? Okay, great. And for the recreation resources, they have a number of local playgrounds, somewhat older, that they have recommended we visit. So I can get a list of those if somebody wants to check out rubberized surfaces, because,
I'll go somewhere.
okay, great. Sounds good.
I'll go somewhere as well. I think, maybe it's one, I don't know, in terms, like you said, doing the research.
Mhm.
Maybe everything is all one and the same, but I think we should at least try to, if something's out there, try to visit a playground that's near water
Mhm, that's a good idea.
and near a place that could potentially take on. To do as much as the apples comparisons.
I think that's a really smart idea.
And definitely ask the vendors about that. So
Okay,
that's something that we're gonna always deal with.
no question. Although hopefully some of the landscaping, depending what plants they put
Yeah,
in, will
insulated,
suck
yeah,
up some of that water, especially if they're using like willows or something like that, that like to have
Yeah,
wet peat. And
yeah.
so we'll
And-
find that out this
yeah.
summer with our.
and who knows, maybe they may come up with some type of barrier that could kind of fortify the playground.
I'm hoping that there's a lot that they can do, but we'll find out. The other thing that might be a nice visit, and this is a little bit further afield from where we are, but I know Lizzie had emailed everybody about it, the Ninja Fit. So I'm gonna volunteer her for that, even though she's not on the subcommittee, but if anybody else wants to check that out too.
What was the date on that? Do you remember?
Oh, it's really getting full.
Yeah, I'll
You have to check it out. And then I'm gonna head down to the Delaware Botanical Garden because I'm still interested in this idea of using the driftwood
Mhm.
from our river, and they apparently have some driftwood installations down there. That, if you guys haven't heard, the guys who did, people who did the High Line were asked to do this little park in southern Delaware, and so it should be a really beautiful thing to see. So I'm gonna circulate the company quote if you want to take a look at it. And covered all that, and then finally, we are going to be submitting an email to Suzanne Souter, who requested an email from us about an ask for the bond bill. And we are focusing that ask on the rubberized surface. So since we have 2 quotes, we know how much to ask for at this point. All right, any questions about playground equipment update? That we covered a lot under playground.
Go back
equipment.
to Glasgow Park, exactly what kind of photos and videos you're looking for?
Really interested in the surfacing and also in anything that is accessibility related. So they have a lot of equipment, I've been told, that are ADA compliant.
Yeah.
That are geared toward kids of all different types, maybe some that are need higher sensory play, and so there, I've never been there, so I don't know exactly what you'll find.
Yeah, they have,
From what I hear.
different,
They
like,
definitely-
I actually think that the main playground part might even be conceptualized design with, like autism in mind, because they
I
have,
think you're right.
different, like audio
Yeah.
sensory,
Yeah, it's really nice.
aspects to it.
And come back with as many ideas as you can, because we'd like to incorporate as much of that as possible. Any other questions? Okay. Wanted to move on to the neighborhood playgrounds. I did reach out at Suzanne Souter's request to Mike Platt, Angel, and Becky Ramos about the Van Dyke Park. I haven't heard back, but I just reached out to them this weekend, so we may be hearing back. And I want to bring your attention to an email from Heather King that's printed out in front of you, who was not able to attend the meeting today, but lives in Buttonwood, and says the equipment there is very outdated. I have small children who want to enjoy the park, but the equipment is very dirty and damaged. My husband and I purchased our home in the Buttonwood neighborhood, our Buddhist Avenue 3 years ago. We love our home, and we want to be able to appreciate the fullness of our purchase. This would be even more possible if our family was able to use this playground safely. So we know that Buttonwood also is a good fit for some of the grants out there. So if we're able to fundraise simultaneously for our projects, I think it would be a good one to pursue. Does anybody here want to take the lead on reaching out to Edith Finn and
What email address does she send that to?
ERO? That's a good question. I'm not sure. Do you know?
No, I don't. You'd have to check with the,
Johnson is in
Yeah.
the city, so I'm assuming it's,
This info,
Possibly.
maybe just info in Newcastle.
yeah, I don't know if it came to her or.
contact Lisa at the staff.
But I do have Edith's email.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I mean, I don't know, I know I have a spam email address, like if you email me and I'm not looking for you, I don't know you. It's
Yeah.
Okay, by the way,
somewhere else, so I'm just thinking,
it needs to come from an official place.
yeah, from a response standpoint, since that's where she emailed it from,
Okay,
or emailed it to.
right. That's a good point. Yeah. I
I wouldn't mind personally reaching out to her. I would actually see if she's interested in maybe going back to what we said at the last meeting, like rounding up some of these community members to take part in the parks that are in their neighborhoods,
Right.
because I mean, we can design something or try to all we want, but
It needs
we're not
buy-in.
there, so.
Right. I would recommend, if you want to reach out to her, just reaching out to her normally and seeing if you get a response. If you don't, then we can always try to go a more official route and have her reach back out to us with an email that Lisa sends.
What date was it?
This was March 17th, so it was just,
Yesterday.
yeah, just yesterday. Good timing. Do you have a copy of it? Here. Yeah. And that brings me to a thought that Matt and I have talked a little bit about, in that having a timeline and having a process in place for setting up neighborhood playgrounds, I think will make make things easier when we get to them. We may not get funding for a while. We may hopefully finish up phase two. Maybe we'll get money to do phase two in the neighborhood park simultaneously. But we know how long it took to get where we are now. We know how much planning it took and how much buy-in. And all of those steps that we took longer because we took them for the first time. But I think if we're able to work together and come up with a timeline of the things that have to be done and the process that we spent doing them, it'll be so much easier for the next person who leads up one of these neighborhood playgrounds. And I think having not just one person, but having at least three who can rely on each other to help push the project forward with the subcommittee's support will just make it a less daunting task. So I wanted to throw out there what you remember from the process that we went through and how we can distill that process into something that we can hand somebody to say, this is what we did, even the slide presentation. This is what we did. This is how we did it. These are the surveys that we used so that it's. Anybody want to start us off?
There might be something that kind of jumps it in order, but as we discuss this, but definitely think the idea of visually looking at equipment
Okay.
and having an idea for the target age ranges
Mhm.
that you're trying to target and identifying visually looking at pictures of equipment.
Survey.
And yeah, survey.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I was just thinking about the blackboard. I mean, I actually got questions going back to this, but using her as a conduit to, knock doors in the neighborhood to, assess, maybe she knows other parents who
That's a
have
good point.
kids.
That's a good point.
Get them, that's how you get your 2 to 3,
Right.
to try and help push that boulder uphill. If I can go back for a second to, this community member, are we looking at a tailored response? Again, I'm emailing her back from an address she won't be
Mhm.
anticipating. So, I don't know if we would do that on the record or not, but do we want like a tailored response? I'm perfectly fine to craft an email on my own, but
Yeah, I think whatever you come up with, we'll use that as the standard going forward. Yeah, that would be fine. But I love your idea of gathering, first walking the neighborhood, gathering people. And then having them fill out a survey either right there or, sending them, maybe having a QR code where they can, on a postcard or something, where they can just do it at their own time. And then finding out from that what the age ranges are, and some of the other questions that we asked in our survey, because we do have a survey we put together.
I'm sorry, if I could just quickly go back to what Andre said, and Andre, I know you're gonna put together like an amazing email. But 2 things I would say, just looking at this person's email, one, we don't wanna assume, right?
exactly.
So, I would say it's probably important that we, make reference to Encore's website in that email to let this resident community member know that there are people on the ground actively doing things. Here's a place that he or she can go to see some data. And then 2, I would say to them, have you been down to Battery Park lately? Have you and your children participated in some of the new equipment? Because maybe they're just in Buttonwood and haven't come to Battery Park.
Or have they taken the survey? We
Right.
posted surveys all over. the place.
We did
Yeah.
within the past 3
Yeah.
years. Maybe if you want to craft an email and then put it out to everybody so that ideas like Brian's can
Yeah.
be integrated in would be great. Yeah, the reviewing of equipment, how we did with that was we invited people to the library and we had pages from Compton and we had people circle what they wanted and put it up on the wall. Is that the best way to do it? Or should we pull things and maybe put it on the Encore website or put it someplace else so that people can go through and do it at their own time without having to go to a library meeting? Or is having a library meeting kind of a good thing because then you can get people potentially more people together and they can meet each other and form the group that will push a playground together? Any ideas?
think, I was talking with Andrew Zill about just sort of public dissemination of information regarding the playground. And he mentioned that, we could probably get a landing page on the city website as well, to post information about what the status is of the park and maybe offer visuals of like, this is phase one, this is phase two, this is where we are now, this is what's coming. This is what needs to happen to meet, this goal. That could be an opportunity related to where the email is coming from, to make a subcommittee email that is both email us at, but then also that's the email that we can send out. Obviously the landing page isn't gonna be made before you might have to respond, but I think that if people know that this subcommittee exists and they might not know that Encore exists, and they might confuse the two organizations as to, are they the same thing?
Right.
Who's in charge? Who's making the decision? So I think keeping that here, and having Encore do what Encore does in terms of just the overall sort of, I'm gonna say behind the scenes, and it's not really. It is, but like, this is the face and this is what people know, and this is like the driving force of it all. So people are gonna want to talk to this. So, I can talk with Andrew a bit more about getting the website up, even if it's just super basic. So I initially had talked to at the partnership meeting, at the Newcastle partnership meeting, of whether or not they would want to fund something like a sign that just says, here's a QR code to learn more about the project, and here's where it's gonna, but like, where does that lead, right? So that led to like, oh, well, we can have a landing page. And that was also brought on by the fact that the bathrooms at Battery Park are closed. So there's just a lot of general confusion at the Battery Park playground as to like, what the heck's going on with this playground? Why can't we use anything? So, all that being said, I think that if we get a landing page set up that displays information, has a PDF packet that people can download that has, all the information that we'll decide on for, like, hey, if you want to start a new park, here are the things that we're going to be talking about. So prep this kind of stuff, and here's the steps to take, right? Or that we will take to do these things. And by the way, Battery Park is the big project. So right now we're on phase, 1.5, and we're doing this, right? So in my head, it has a sort of like grayed out image of what the park looks like. It's like full colors where we are with the swings, and then phase two with the superstructure sort of put in, and then people can see sort of like, oh, I understand now. So, because you can say phase one, phase two, phase three, phase four, but you can't envision that, right? Unless you know. So I will talk to Andrew about sort of setting something up from an official city standpoint. Just to have Newcastle tag to it, so that more efficient.
Couldn't agree more. I think, to your point, man, I think avoiding the confusion, and I'm gonna go back to here, when I email her, it's gonna come from an address she's not expecting. I'm gonna reference Encore. I'm gonna say I'm part of the subcommittee, and that community member is gonna be like, what is that?
Because she's the one who gets the email.
But I think going forward to what Matt was saying, having that landing page along with even an email address.
And Matt, I just reviewed the content for Encore's website, which has everything you just talked about. Maybe we can just crib it from there.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it can be, it's one information, right? And we can always say, oh, city website, and of course that'll make people upset. Like, that's a tricky thing to have. But if we have something that we can send people to, we can figure out ways to get people there, whether it's business cards, flyers, other information, that we can disseminate physically amongst people, just so we have information to house it, rather than having it just sort of be in the ether and saying, well, you'll get an email from somewhere sometime.
So just going back and taking the information that we've talked about and putting it into a process. gathering 3 or more people to complete a survey or having one person knock on everybody's door, maybe handing out flyers, gathering that group, sending out the survey, which identifies the age range and what the expectation of the community is for their playground, reviewing equipment. So options would be either a digital version where we can share it, because Compton's site is huge, or scheduling a in-person meeting for people to come and to pick out things that they wanted themselves. I'm gonna suggest that we try to schedule an in-person meeting, because I felt that that was a really great community building event. And then for people who miss it, maybe then being able to do something online might be okay. Putting together a catalog for something online, not the easiest thing in the world. But you know, there are ways to do it, and I could probably figure it out. Okay, so in-person meeting, and then really the next step from that is having a budget. So that's something I think we would probably have to determine going in, is what should each of the neighborhood community budgets be loosely. And we know for $160,000, we were able to get some really great equipment. So is that our starting place for 160? And you know, if we can raise a little bit more or a little bit less, you know, that will determine exactly what we can do. But taking the equipment that was proposed by the community, by the neighborhood, matching it with the budget, then having them prioritize, I guess,
Right.
really. So that would be another survey as to what's your most important piece of equipment and rank it.
Related to that too, I think that we should have sort of ADA standard that like every playground is gonna have a poured rubber surface. Otherwise.
So that blows the 160 out.
Right, that was exactly.
No question.
It's like, every park should be accessible to everybody in the city. And it does us a huge disservice if we make one park have a different surface and the other park put a slightly different surface, that's, you know, so I think standard ground level literally should be, what is it gonna cost to surface this?
Okay,
And then go, I know that, like, just like you said, blows them out of the water, but.
well, the
mean-
surfacing at that point becomes more expensive than the equipment itself.
Right,
And granted, the surfacing for the battery park is what it is because it has mulch in there now.
Right.
And, you know, that was a learning curve for us.
Yeah.
And it was what we could do under the budget that we had. So we can do some investigation to find out what's the most affordable surfacing that we can have, given that it's done. Well, still, we have to have mulch come out of those parks too, so it's not that different, but maybe not to the depth. So that's a whole area of investigation.
I've had some feedback from Bull Hill, I know I said that, it's just from conversations on the playground, literally, that folks that are using Bull Hill have mused about maybe having a fence around the park so that they can just sort of like let their kids run free, and especially since it's so close to the river.
Yeah.
So, you know, is it sort of something where like any park within this age range also has a fence and benches within that, so that parents can sort of sit within the fence and watch their kids and just let them run without having to worry, and a gate as well, not just, and just let them run and be free and have fun in the park and not have to worry about them going in the river or being attacked by geese or something. And so is that like an equipment, a functional standard for parks that are ages, you know, infant to 3, 4, 5, whatever, like Bull Hill might be,
Right.
or Buttonwood might be for maybe a little bit older. Maybe you don't need the fence, you know, but you still have the ADA accessibility, so,
Right.
you know, but
It's what the community wants,
And-
right? If, you know, at Bull Hill, you're within
Yeah.
You have,
just in terms of budgeting, it's like, are there sort of general standards that we sort of want to aim for on the pyramid of, right? Obviously, every park is different, everything's going to be different, the community wants different things. these are what we kind of want to have at every,
It's a standard.
yeah.
So what would you say, other than the surfacing, that you would want at every park, that you could, every park?
Well, that for me is a big one. I want everybody to be able to use the park. I would say whenever they want, but obviously there are like park ones that does. But I very much want accessibility. So
Right. So the surfacing.
servicing is a big one, yeah.
Anything other than the surfacing?
To be honest, playground equipment is wild to me right now. So there's all sorts of incredible things. I'm like, this is cool,
Mhm.
but you know, what I think is cool can be a monster to other parents. So,
That's why I
Yeah.
want to get the input, I think.
yeah, I think from an equipment standpoint, it's all community feedback. It's all sort of like you have your in-person meeting, you record it, you have a moment or a period of time for comments for people that can't make the physical meeting, but you make the recorded meeting accessible
Mhm.
and present whatever is presented in the physical meeting virtually via PowerPoint slide or something. It's sort of like any like sort of state project, right? You have your period of comment.
Mhm.
And I think that would allow people to think about what they want in the park, whether they can or cannot attend the meeting, but also gives people time to sort of digest the new equipment and sort of the new philosophies of what a playground is. And even something like, you know, resurfacing seems obvious to us because we've talked about it for so long, but you know, a newer parent or somebody, even a grandparent might be like, I'm just gonna make it rubber, you know, so, and that would allow more people to participate in the survey and we can get a lot of wider and sort of still from there,
So
so.
in terms of a timeline, let's say the meeting was on the first of the month and an email went out to everybody after the meeting, you know, within a couple of days. These are the things that were chosen. Here, take a look and fill out the survey, what you like, or go over here and check out and see what other options you might want to consider. Then a period of time, maybe a week, to take all that information, pull it together, and then push it back within a shorter period of time so that people can then rank and rate
Mhm.
what has been presented so that the decisions can be made quickly. Because when we did it, you know, we were finding our way and it took many, many months, but I don't know that it needs to. I think if we have this well thought out, that from beginning to end of the decisions, you know, putting in place a couple of periods of reflection but then having a deadline
Mhm.
so that people have the information they thought about for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and then decisions are made based on budget and based on ranking of equipment and things like that. So does everybody feel like a month is enough time to go from picking equipment, you know, refining the equipment and then making decisions, or is that too short a period of time?
I'm wondering 6 weeks.
6
I
weeks?
just think
Okay.
a month is particularly depends what month it is. too.
Oh, no, December.
Yeah.
I think we definitely hit a good benchmark so that you can have 30-day comment period. So you have your initial meeting every 30 days, and then you have that extra, say, 2 weeks. That you can have another meeting and say, here's what we've come up with, here's what the responses have been, here's sort of phase 2 of what our idea is. These are not final decisions, but like, let's get as close to final as we can in this new meeting. And then go from there.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well, I think I'll rough this out and I'll present it at our next subcommittee meeting, so that we can all comment and try to link in the different surveys that we've already put together so that we have as much of the process turnkey as it possibly can be. And I think one of the things, in addition to age range, that we want to throw out there is because as I was talking to a lot of different people who work on playgrounds throughout Wilmington, you know, it's not just the slides and the climbing equipment. We could have a sprinkler park. Full would that be? And people might not think of that. I didn't think of that. So, having different ideas for them to consider and to weigh in on.
Actually, a borough in PA that did away with their community swimming pool. For liability, all kinds of other reasons, but then did a splash park, like a splash pad, and kids love it.
That's exactly what I was told by somebody in Wilmington. She's like, don't go for community pool, go for splash park. That's
love
River
it.
Park, that it's really perfect. Okay,
Might also wanna build in, the 6 week is a great time frame. Might wanna, as we're building it out, put that whatever playground on the agenda
Mhm.
for the subcommittee meeting to where if public comments needed to be made, they could be done, in the proper form.
so you're talking, if we have a particular playground that is
Right,
being,
just moving forward,
Moving
then
forward.
it goes on, potentially goes on the agenda for
Okay.
here. So it's not like,
We snuck it in there.
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Now, how they get?
yeah.
Yeah, another avenue for people to offer input. And I think that the initial meeting is a huge data collection opportunity for names, address, emails, phone numbers, and every single one of those people that participate is constantly updated as to like where it is in the process of like,
Yeah.
There's a meeting coming up for this park. Come to the meeting if you have a public comment. Even if you don't, come to the meeting.
Right.
Participate in your, community. That just makes people happier.
yeah, no,
Information.
definitely, information and being able to make decisions.
Yeah.
And seeing those decisions become reality.
Okay.
I thought you were gonna say
I
something.
was, but I want to make sure you were finished.
I'm done.
I wanted to go back to something Matt said about the bathroom closures, in Battery Park. Anecdotal, of course, but, I don't know if you had a chance to get to the park over this past weekend, nice weather outside, tons and tons of people out there. But definitely heard, grumblings and whisperings from, lots of people out there about the parks being closed. And I know that the trustees and who manage the park have closed it because of vandalism and they wouldn't want to stand for it back that decision. Not sure though, if it's our purview, and if it is, how do we, as a subcommittee, tackle that aspect of it? Because as we continue to build out not just Battery Parks but other parks, it's not really feasible to have a built up park system with no bathrooms.
Yeah.
Great, that's a good question. I mean, I think we can probably bring it to city council through a public comment. Of how that's impacting playground users. And as parents, of children who need to use that bathroom and also as adults as well. Going and speaking at city council. I don't know how that issue was solved because the trustees obviously are in control. So maybe it's also going to a trustees meeting and talking to them. I think there are lots of ideas, probably good ideas about how you can manage vandalism and control access on off hours. That might be something that they would be open to listening to, but this is probably the single most frustrating part of trying to do something in Newcastle is because you have to weigh between the two entities and how to get that connect to make those decisions is difficult. I don't know, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, now that the weather is starting to break, it's important for people that have, things that are important to them to make it known to leadership, and to groups that have the decision-making capability. In the summer months coming up, the city will go through its, annual budget review. I know the trustees do something, at the end of the year, but also know they sometimes do things throughout the year. And they certainly have meetings or have forums, where you can email them, like outreach committees and things. make these types of things, in their frontal brains. I certainly hear, what you said, Andre, and that, in respect to that, and we'll certainly, take back some of these comments to my colleagues on council.
Think so. I wish we had a bit more support within the whole bathroom thing, but we're just a tiny subcommittee, so punch where we can. I do know that from a partnership perspective, bathrooms are only being really looked at. A, is a sort of frustrating thorn on our side, but also for event use, like Separation Day coming up, things like that. And trailers might be brought in, like a wedding venue trailer and the concerts in the park, things like every summer event that happens in Newcastle. It's sort of like, oh, well, yeah, well, maybe we'll get a trailer and that's the budget. I think it's really frustrating that like this, it's like a keystone piece of community engagement is a bathroom hall, because every organization in Newcastle should want that to be open, because I think I said this in the email, the moment somebody has to go to the bathroom and they see that it's chained up, they leave Newcastle. And they don't come back, and that is a core memory of like, oh, well, the bathroom was locked, so I'm not gonna go back. And it's not like you could just send out a flyer to everybody that's ever seen the locked bathroom and say, no, wait, come back, the bathrooms are open again. Like, there's sort of that like broken trust of, well, we have this public entity, but now it's rather aggressively chained up. Like the visuals of that is just like it's really aggressive and jarring. And I think that the town, from council on down, I'm not blaming council for like not doing anything, but like there should be a louder voice from businesses, from government, from whatever, to either to the trustees to say, you gotta fix this, or like, let us fix it somehow. And by us, I mean like the collective, not like one group. Because it will kill events, it will kill business, it will kill
I know that
public image. It already has, so.
even the Calmar Nickel uses it, and they're gonna be coming into port soon, and if they don't have a bathroom, they're not gonna come back. At some point, they're just gonna say.
So do we want to make that part of the playground, or is that something that is more appropriate to city council? I mean, it's right adjacent to the playground. It definitely impacts what we do. I mean, we know that we can write letters to the editor. We can speak up at city council. We can go to trustees meetings that are open and, talk about the impact that it's having.
Oh, they don't
We
do
can-
public comment anymore, so we have to write it to the trust.
Right.
I think we need more, I agree with you, there needs to be more support.
It needs to be, yeah, it needs
So
to
there
be.
needs to be somebody leading it, because I'm sure everybody, Matt, feels like you do, because it makes no sense not to have a bathroom, especially one that, has been taken out of service the way it is. But it needs someone to step up and to say, this is something I really want to see change, and to potentially write for a grant, because if the issue is money to replace it, the trustees, from what I understand, don't want to put more money in if it's going to be vandalized again. So maybe it's research into how do other communities do this, where they can keep bathrooms from being vandalized, or is what kind of
Alarm
equipment,
systems, or, yeah.
alarms, locking the door at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
or at dusk, and opening it up in the morning. Right. Right, exactly. So, is that an easy solution? I mean, this is something that so many other entities have been able to solve.
Yeah.
So we should be able to do. And it's a matter of research, and then it's a matter of funds. And those funds can be either from the city, they can be from grants, they can be from the trustees if they'll do it. But it requires somebody stepping up and doing that piece of work and gathering people together. And I mean, it certainly, if you guys want to make it an extension of the playground subcommittee, we can give a shot. I know we've got our hands full with, what we're doing at the moment, so I don't know that it's something that we have the bandwidth
Right.
to do.
I
Or
think,
really belongs in our.
I think I think it belongs in our purview, but only in the sense that like we are one voice in a choir.
Mhm.
And I think that we can, like you said, do letters to the editor, we can submit public comments to the trustees. And I think we should do that as an organization and say, this is our view on the subject. Not really pointing fingers, but saying this is affecting our element, which we feel is negative for X, Y, Z.
Mhm.
And, you know, we have to wonder if it's affecting other organizations.
Mhm.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you're out there. Perhaps you could also tell us what's affecting, you know, like offering that sort of like opening the door and being like, oh gee, it would be a shame if somebody else kicked this in. Because like we're only a subcommittee, like it's. And we as individuals can sort of reach out to the people in power and stuff too, but I think as an organization, it's like submitting submitting the letters and then saying, you know, businesses, is this working for you? Do you realize how it's affecting you? City, like you have these events coming up. You realize that's gonna affect you, you know, so.
At the expense of expediency, though, I would say, and I agree, we don't want to point fingers, but I do wonder if we need to have at least a solution or proposed solution, if not several proposed solutions. When I go back and I think about, you know, the very early days of, hey, we want to do a playground, and when we went forward, part of what, you know, really served as a catalyst and kind of put wind in our sails was that we were going forward with solutions to city council, as opposed to, hey, here's a problem, fix it.
Yeah.
Here's a problem, but here's might be the solution. And that's actually how we got a subcommittee formed and everything else. So
Yeah.
I almost wonder with the trustees, especially, I do feel like they tend to get, you know, feel upset sometimes, like people always come to them with the handout, but not necessarily with a solution, that you might be able to get more buy-in from them if you are able to say, hey, you know, understand your plight, here's some possible solutions. You know, these sound like something you can get on board with, and if not, you know, is there some other way that we could, you know, maybe help you be able to cross this bridge? Because what's not acceptable is that we just can't keep it closed.
Right. And I think, you know, using the city of Wilmington as a roadmap, these are issues that I'm sure they've encountered. And what are their solutions? What equipment do they buy? How do they structure bathrooms and access and things like that? Making a couple of phone calls to people who run, you know, the parks. Probably get all the answers that we need and all the information that we need and all the costs, you know, what is it gonna cost and what is the whole game plan for this? And then presenting that as a solution to the city and to the trustees and saying, okay, these are the dollars that need to be allocated. Can the city allocate this? Do they have enough? Can the trustees kick in? Do they have enough? Or do we need to go for grant and make this happen? But everything's possible as long as the roadmap is clear. And as long as the source of funding is clear as well. So I think that's what it takes to make this done. But I think we should definitely begin to convey how this impacts the playground and how this impacts the community.
Right.
As
The
often,
whole city.
yeah, the whole city, as frequently as we can. Any other questions before we break?
I wanna make one comment, to the body and to the chairwoman. This past city council meeting, I brought forward a resolution and it did pass. It was, introduced the prior month. But it was a resolution that is requiring all city boards and commissions to report to city council on at least an annual basis. The planning commission, was like sometimes doing it and many of the other boards and commissions weren't.
Mhm.
And, it was something that seemed like a gap to me, through my campaign and in speaking with different people. An opportunity for the city council to hear, what's going well, what's not going well. Is there an opportunity? Is there a gap? You know, do you have enough people in the subcommittee? Are people coming? Are they not coming? Do you need any help from us in respect to grant funding, additional training, et cetera. I just thought it would be something that would just benefit and make sure that everyone is like working together and have open lines of communication, and more so that people in the subcommittees feel appreciated and they feel like they have a voice
Right.
to council, because they volunteer, and you all know, you volunteer so much of your time and your hours, that you wanna feel like you have a platform, and wanna feel like you have a partnership. So I did do that, my colleagues on council did support it, and it did pass.
Okay.
Again, it was not done to like create extra work. And please know there'll be, I guess, additional communication surrounding that. So again, it wasn't done to create extra work, wasn't done to like, what are you doing, in terms of micromanaging, but more so like, how can we help you? So I just wanna.
Is the report a written report or is it a presentation to the city council at a city council meeting?
That's great. That's a great question. That's something that we're gonna try to iron out, and we want it to be as fluid as possible. We know that certain subcommittees meet more frequently than others. Some have more activity ongoing than others. And again, we don't want it to be a burden for people. But I think there will be certain core questions, and then people can kind of freestyle it however they deem appropriate.
That's great. That's good.
Is there a set date that every committee is presenting, or is it for like a rolling?
That's another great question, Matt. It got carried forward and approved in March. We are going into next budget cycle, like June, July. So there was some conversation around like, should it be done before then? But then also the reality of like, these committees and boards have been operating for years without requiring it or asking them to do it, and then to ask them to turn around and do it in a month or two, like, is that maybe too much of a rub? So if you have any feedback on if you think something like that is too quick turn around, I would certainly take it back anecdotally.
Managing processes,
Yeah.
you know, the way I do, obviously outside of here, I would say that you guys at the council level almost have to have, you know, that information really for you to go and make the best decisions.
Yeah.
From your budgeting standpoint, including request of funds, and so it might be a bit of a hardship, and you can, accept that this first year you might not get, as much report, and, just lay it out that, you'll be looking for in the year to come, because then it won't be that they've never done it, they've done it before, and you look to improve it, and continue to build it out. But if it was me, if I was sitting in that, I would say, yeah, I mean, I would be looking to do it before I go into budgeting for the fiscal year. I just don't know how I can legitimately look at everything that's going on with however many different hands might be in a pot, however many subgroups, and not know what they're doing, what they need.
I agree. That's why I couldn't believe it wasn't being done.
Yeah. I have a suggestion. If you have a survey that goes out to each of the committees with some set questions like, what is your main goal for this year? Do you have enough subcommittee members? How much money do you think you need to get done? What you'd like to get done, things like that. And I think maybe the subcommittees could even help give you the questions to ask. And then everybody just fills out the same survey and you get all that information. It would be easy.
Yeah.
And maybe, next year you would ask a couple more questions.
Where, why?
Yeah, we get a survey.
And, just some broader questions, and then, you'll refine them for year two. And always leave one of those questions, what didn't I ask?
Right.
I think that would be a great thing, because you're gonna approach a bunch of different committees, and they're all gonna, if you don't give them like framework, they're all gonna present something completely different, and even just a foundational set of questions, if they just did bare minimum answer the questions and just submitted it in writing, great.
Yeah.
You did it, you checked the box, good. Next year, we're gonna work a little harder.
Okay, yeah, and it is also meant to be somewhat reflective, like, what were the happenings over the course of the last year, et cetera. Even something like, may not be applicable for all committees, but many of these committees, obviously, we're talking about, have effects on people's quality of life. So are these committees, quote unquote, fielding complaints from residents, or things that, city council should or want to know about peripherally or need to take
Wouldn't that be
definitive action?
Feel complaints, the city council don't know about it, but your subcommittees do, like, that would be problematic. So, I mean, I really do, I think it's a really, really good idea, thank you for putting that, that resolution together and then getting it approved, I think it's really smart.
No, it's not about me, it's about the community.
It's a good idea, take it, take it, go with it.
Less of like, I think a lot of committees, from this initial standpoint, are about, it's another thing that we have to submit, but in writing your questions and sort of what you want to find out about these committees, I think it should be a celebration of the committee, right? Like, what's gone well, what do you need? And I envision something kind of cool of like, this is hypothetical, like, oh, the January meeting, January 1, like, all the committees come out and present their, whatevers. And it's like I use the word festival, but it's sort of like, come out and see, we had the thing at the library that's like, meet your community organizations that are sort of like, they feel like they come in real fast, they're gone. And it's sort of like, oh, that was this weekend? Oh, that was tonight? Shoot, But if it's sort of this thing of like coming out and meet your communities, come out and see what's happening in the town, it's another opportunity for people to know what's going on, even if they don't know the like deep inner workings of something.
So you're thinking almost like a subcommittee bazaar?
I mean, it's sort of like
Open house.
it should be something that is fun for both the committee and the council and the people of the city, that it's like, oh, cool, this stuff is happening in our town. There's actually a lot going on under the surface of the water to keep this little train going up the hill, right? So like it could be a fun thing rather than being like, oh, we have to submit this report. And like it should be a lot more engaging than just like, okay, and now we will read, the report from this. It should be something a bit more. It could be. I'm not saying that like the first iteration of it will be that, because it never is, but as it transitions into something, it can be more of a celebration and a bazaar. If you want to make it that, I mean, why not? Why not, right? Add a little spice to life. We don't sit in chairs too long to just fade away to dust. Have some fun.
So
We're
we
the
build
playground
community.
community, for God's
Yeah.
sake. Add some swings to life.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second? All in
Second.
favor?
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Great
everyone.
meeting.
I think it's kind of.
You're welcome.
Thank you.